I often find myself wandering through the dusty corners of my mind, tracing the threads of memories that weave the fabric of my life with David. Before Clara's disdain loomed over us like heavy clouds, I remember the brightness of those early mornings when the world was fresh and new, brimming with possibilities. Each Sunday, I would brew the strongest coffee, the aroma wrapping around our home like an invisible hug, stirring David from his dreams with its rich, inviting scent. Clutching my apron, I would slip into the warmth of the kitchen, juggling breakfast orders like a seasoned performer. I recall mornings filled with laughter as I made fluffy pancakes. David, barely 5, would race to the table, eyes wide with eagerness. "More syrup, Mom," he would shout, and I would pour with a gentle smile, my heart swelling with joy. Those moments anchored me. They were simple yet profound exchanges, full of love. He was my world, and each sacrifice I made felt like a thread sewn into our bond. When David entered school, I worked 2 jobs to support his dreams. I still see him, a wide-eyed boy in an oversized backpack, waving goodbye in the mornings. I learned to balance my late-night shifts with early morning school meetings, a delicate dance that often left me exhausted but fulfilled. Every experience, scraping together funds for his baseball gear, helping him study for tests, felt like a labor of love, building a future for my son. Each small triumph, from his first report card to his high school graduation, felt like my own. Later, on rainy afternoons, I would sit beside him as he read. His small fingers would grip the pages, the sound of his voice echoing through the living room, a melody of youth and dreams. We'd share laughter over silly characters and heroic tales, a world where love, bravery, and kindness prevailed. In those moments, I felt a sense of purpose, fulfillment, and connection that I had dedicated my life to nurturing. But then, Clara entered like a storm, bright and modern, with her sharp opinions and contemporary methods. I couldn't help but notice the subtle shifts during family dinners. It began with small, quick comments that left me feeling like a relic from another time. "You really let him eat that much sugar?" she'd say, a sweet smile hiding the venom. I would feel my heart sink, a tightness forming in my throat as I fought to hold on to my pride. When they got married, I thought it was a chance for a new beginning, a chance to expand our family bonds. I imagined shared stories and laughter in our home, but Clara's controlling nature quickly surfaced. It was as if I became a footnote in the glorious narrative she was crafting around their lives. In subtle ways, she began to erase the traditions that meant so much to me, and I watched helplessly as my once joyous gatherings turned into impersonal affairs. Dinner conversations shifted. David seemed preoccupied, often deferring to Clara with every decision, morphing from the bright-eyed boy I raised into a silent participant in his own life. My sacrifices, rendered obsolete in the light of her modern ideals, began to feel insignificant. The love and care I poured into David's upbringing slipped through my fingers like sand, leaving behind an unsettling emptiness, and yet I held on to hope, an unyielding desire to cultivate understanding. Perhaps Clara just needed more time and patience. As I recalled those tender, warm memories with David, I resolved to bridge the gap, to show Clara my heart, hoping that maybe she would understand the depth of my love and the strength of our bond. But in the back of my mind, a shadow loomed. Silences grew heavier. The laughter faded, leaving me to wonder when that bond would be so unshakably strong again. The first Thanksgiving after Clara joined our family felt like stepping into a beautifully wrapped gift, one that held promises of new traditions and warmth. The kitchen bustled with familiar scents, the rich aroma of roasted turkey mingling with cinnamon and nutmeg, filling every corner with anticipation. I arranged the tablecloth with care, smoothing out every wrinkle, positioning the candles just so. My heart swelled with hope as I set the table, envisioning laughter and love enveloping us. But as soon as I welcomed Clara into our home, her presence felt different. She entered, her hair shining like a beacon, clad in a fashionable outfit that seemed to scream modernity. I greeted her with an embrace, a gesture I still remember, hoping it would bridge the gap. However, the warmth in her eyes faded as she looked around, her gaze landing on my carefully placed decorations. "You don't really use these old candles, do you? They have a certain vintage look," she remarked, her smile hinting at amusement. It was a casual jab, but sharp enough to pierce through my festive spirit. I felt my cheeks flush, a heat creeping up my neck. The once loving embrace of this family gathering morphed into an uncomfortable standoff, and I felt resentment trickling into the joyous atmosphere. As dinner was served, the clinking of silverware competed with the undercurrents of tension. I watched as Clara led David through their meal, guiding him with a selective authority. "Make sure to watch your portions, honey. We want to keep you fit," she said, time and again, while he nodded and complied. My heart sank. In those sentences, I could sense the tightening grip on my son, as if she was pulling him away from not just the table, but from my reach. Each laugh shared between Clara and the grandchildren, those sweet, innocent faces, I felt further pushed aside. During dessert, Clara turned to me and said, "You know, Mom, I think it's better if we steer them clear of sweets. I've read so much about nutrition since I became a mom." Her words, sugary sweet on the surface, carried a bitterness beneath. I looked at David, desperate for a sign of support. He caught my eye for a brief moment, then diverted his gaze, his fork tracing circular patterns on his plate like he was lost in thought. As the night wore on, I tried to engage Clara, to work my way into her heart. I shared a story about her husband as a child, hoping for a shared smile, but she diverted it, quickly changing the subject to her plans for the children's education, an area where her ideals always reigned supreme. The sensation of invisibility washed over me again, heavy and suffocating. In the ensuing family gatherings, Clara's comments became less veiled and more direct. "I think kids need structure, don't you? Letting them run wild doesn't create good habits," she remarked during a birthday celebration for one of the grandchildren. The words hung in the air like a foreboding shadow, and as I looked around the table, the only nodding heads were Clara's supporters, her friends whom I had come to barely know. I felt waves of confusion and frustration mounting within me. My opinions seemed disregarded, my experiences belittled, and amidst the joy of celebrating, I was becoming a stranger in my own home. Moments replayed in my mind, soft echoes of laughter now laced with Clara's criticism, highlighting each time she deemed me outdated or irrelevant. The more she wielded her control, the more David's silence grew. Sometime I would catch him glancing at me, a flicker of something indecipherable crossing his features, but would quickly retreat back into the fortress of his daughter-in-law's expectations. I began to reflect on the warning signs, the wedding planning full of her ideals, the subtle snips at my traditional advice during parenting discussions, and how moments with the grandchildren turned into orchestrated performances rather than genuine connections. Despite it all, I held on to cherished hopes. Perhaps I was merely misinterpreting Clara's intentions. I would remind myself that time could cure many wounds, and I attempted to plan gatherings, offerings of my love, thankfulness laden beneath Clara's exterior. I prepared family meals, baked favorites I had once shared with David, and slowly I convinced myself that everything would fall into place. But it became clearer with each passing gathering that time wasn't the only medicine needed. A shift was brewing in our dynamic, one that I couldn't simply ignore by hoping for the best. The laughter would sound differently if it was filled with understanding rather than cringing judgment. I sensed that I needed to be more proactive, to reclaim my voice. In the quiet of the evening after family dinners, I would sit alone on the back patio, clutching a lukewarm cup of tea, staring into the night sky, a canvas of stars that felt so distant. The world seemed heavy, yet behind those clouds of uncertainty, I envisioned the stars breaking through, twinkling reminders of hope. I whispered to myself an affirmation, a mantra I needed to remember. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. Perhaps the change needed to start with me. The holiday season arrived, and with it, the promise of family gatherings filled me with a mix of hope and anxiety. On a frigid December evening, I was preparing for yet another dinner at David and Clara's home, filled with the hope that perhaps warmth and connection could be rekindled. I spent hours in the kitchen, attending to a tray of my famous roasted vegetables, their vibrant colors standing in stark contrast to the unease that gnawed at my insides. As I chopped, I found myself flipping through memories of laughter, joy, and the warmth that family gatherings once provided. I yearned for a return to those days when love was palpable and not marred by sarcasm. Arriving at their home, I masked my apprehension with a polite smile. The crackle of the fireplace left a cozy impression, but Clara's tight-lipped greeting quickly reminded me of the tension lying beneath the surface. With every simple, well-meaning comment I tried to make, Clara's sharp responses cut through the atmosphere, reducing my contributions to mere footnotes in her grand narrative. "Let's organize a game," Clara chirped, but the enthusiasm in her voice barely masked the authority she commanded. My heart sank as I noticed the children rush toward her, their little faces lighting up, oblivious to the chill I felt creeping into the room. I sat quietly at the edges, becoming an invisible observer as my grandchildren became engrossed in her plans, leaving me feeling like an outsider in my own family. As the evening progressed, I felt the walls closing in. Clara's jabs were often veiled in humor, but the sting of her words was sharp. "You know, it's unbelievable how you managed without a smartphone when David was growing up," she quipped, laughter trailing behind her. Children giggled and they turned toward her, inviting her to perpetuate the moment while I shrank back, my heart pounding against my chest, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Every laugh at my expense became a slight wound, each smile growing more forced as the layers of humiliation piled up. Much like a carefully constructed facade, my efforts and sacrifices became lost, overshadowed by Clara's modern ideals and an air of superiority. David's silence became a weighted silence, a space where unrecognizable emotions resided. Occasionally, our eyes would meet, but they always carried a weight I could not decipher, only to be lost once again in the hustle of family activities. Dinner came to a close, but not before I miscalculated while serving mashed potatoes, accidentally sending a spoon clattering against the table and splattering a bit of food. The children burst into giggles, and Clara shot me a playful smirk. "See, that's what happens when you're not paying attention," she laughed. My heart sank deeper, caught in the vice grip of humiliation. In that moment, I realized how tired I was of these small barbs that eroded the foundation of my love for family. They became too frequent, too deliberate. I felt suffocated by their implications as Clara's influence expanded, making me doubt my role in my own family. Yet, as the gathering progressed, I slipped into the kitchen alone to wash dishes, desperately seeking comfort in the familiar task of cleaning. Standing there, Surrounded by warm summer scents from my shared childhood, determination flickered inside me. I glanced out the window, the dark sky reflecting the turmoil within me. I had seen how love could blur and twist into something uncomfortable, a dance of passive discomfort combined with sputtered hope. I recalled my mantra, murmuring to myself with growing conviction, "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart." It rang with truth. Perhaps the change needed to start with me. I began imagining how I could reclaim my voice, how confronting the unspoken animosity could transform those gatherings. No longer could the silent humiliations dictate my place in this family. I envisioned my next steps, a way to break the cycle while standing tall and dignified. The fear within me was tempered by resolve. My experience had value, and it was time to reclaim that power. As I finished washing the last plate, I felt like a small flame igniting deep within, slowly warming the doubts I had allowed to freeze my spirit. It was time to recognize my worth and refuse to be sidelined by Clara's derision. I steeled myself, knowing the path wouldn't be easy, but deep in my core, I felt the higher stakes of a mother's love demanding to be heard. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself existing between the comfort of familiarity and the sharp discomfort of my reality. I began to take notice, the minutiae, the little moments during the family visits that spoke volumes of Clara's disdain toward me. Each gathering presented me an opportunity to scrutinize her behavior, like an artist studying a painting for hidden layers obscured by the sheen of gloss. I replayed scenes in my head, the way she would interrupt my stories, the dismissive hand gestures, the subtle yet effective derision laced in her laughter whenever I dared to voice an opinion. Slowly I catalogued these encounters, building a mental archive of evidence as if I were a detective peering into the shadows, searching for the villain lurking behind the curtains. One Sunday afternoon, as the sun hung low in the sky, casting golden rays across the kitchen island, Clara arrived with a proud announcement: the children's upcoming school performance. She took the center stage, her voice vibrant as she outlined the details while I stood back, observing. The children swirled around her, eager and engaged, riding the wave of her energy. "Isn't it amazing how much they learn today? They need structure, and luckily they'll get that in my class," Clara declared, her eyes shimmering with excitement, utterly oblivious to the heaviness they created in the room. I wanted to interject, to discuss how creativity, free to roam, could also flourish, but my words seemed trapped beneath her radiant sun. "Mom, you know how much she does for them," David chimed in, his words slicing through my silence, further propelling the wedge existing between us. I felt my heart sink, heavier than before, as I witnessed the reinforcing cycle of Clara's domination. Yet I remained silent, the wheels turning in my mind, the resolve strengthening with each encounter. Observing details became a game, a method to extract power from an already unbalanced situation. In quiet moments, I would remember the warmth of being a mother, the strength drawn from a shared history. My flashes of remembrance sparked clarity. This was about my dignity, reclaiming my narratives and not allowing Clara to rewrite my place in this family. During subsequent visits, I endeavored to catch fleeting moments, jokes directed at me and subtle digs about my old-fashioned ways. Yet, as I built this record, my vision sharpened. In a way, my heartache began to transform into a toolkit, one that I could use to create boundaries grounded in respect. I observed how Clara engaged with the children. It was not just about education. It came with rules wrapped in her interpretation of authority. Each time they hesitated to ask me to join them, it deepened the pit of realization that Clara was constructing a wall, a barrier cloaked in authority that pushed me further from their reach. Each week, we faced alternate lunches in public parks or cozy brunches in cafes, her steady stream of anecdotes painting herself as the ideal mother, the benevolent nurturer. I immersed myself in conversations with the children, making fleeting connections, hoping snippets of love could penetrate the firmly drawn lines Clara had established. As I documented the moments where I felt the sting of disdain, I grew aware of my resilience. In one particularly telling instance during a family brunch, Clara leaned into David, asking him in a voice coated with sweetness, "Doesn't it make you nervous how unfashionable your mother can be sometimes?" Their shared chuckle sent a sharp pang through me. I stole a glance toward David, whose smile fell as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by a shadow of uncertainty. "Mom's great," he muttered, but his voice lacked fervor, a mere ripple in a rising tide. I committed this exchange to memory, another piece to my collection, further motivating my resolve to confront the festering problems between us. The more I observed, the more I understood the power dynamics at play. I felt empowered, piecing together the motives behind Clara's theatrics, training myself to remain composed while recognizing that this needed to culminate in a confrontation. The path wouldn't be easy, and my hesitation still loomed large, but a clear intention began to crystallize. One evening, I took my daughter-in-law's friend aside, a mutual confidant, hoping to gather insight into Clara's motivations. "It must be hard for you, being around her so often," the friend remarked, an understanding glimmer in her eyes. "She tends to overshadow anyone who doesn't quite fit into her mold." Surprised by the empathy I hadn't expected, I pressed on, seeking relatable reflections. This was the key I had needed, confirmation that I was not imagining things, that many felt the dynamics shifted towards Clara's favor. The depth of that night turned into quiet revelation. It planted a seed of encouragement deep within me. It was no longer just about Clara's wit overshadowing my presence. It was about restoring equilibrium and mutual respect. Armed with my recollection of events and affirmations from an outside source, I slowly felt the stirrings of courage brewing within. With each piece of evidence I gathered, my internal conflict grew lighter. I understood the path ahead wouldn't be easy, yet I marked my red-letter day on an imaginary calendar. The day I would confront Clara was approaching fast, and I pledged to make my voice heard, even if it took every ounce of strength left within me. As I prepared for the confrontation, I repeated my mantra, weaving threads of purpose into my resolve. "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart." The day I had circled on my imaginary calendar finally arrived, drenched in a winter haze that mirrored the chill coiled within my bones. Clara invited us all for lunch today, and I sensed it was the perfect opportunity to confront her. As the morning unfolded, my thoughts sifted through anxiety like warm honey slipping through fingers. They congealed around the urgency of my intentions. I adorned myself in a deep burgundy sweater, its soft fabric wrapping me like armor. Each thread invoked a history of warmth and love, knitting together the courageous spirit that had carried me until now. I gazed into the mirror, repeating my mantra as if grounding the impending confrontation. "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart." My arrival at Clara's home was met with the familiar scent of rosemary chicken wafting through the kitchen, a deceptive welcome attempting to mask the electric tension brewing beneath the surface. Her radiant laughter cascaded through the air, but I noticed its dissonance, sonorous but sharp. As the door swung open, David's genuine excitement enveloped me, pulling me closer to the warmth of our shared memories, shielding me from the chill that Clara exuded. Settling in at the table, the provincial farmhouse-style decor painted a picturesque moment, yet I knew the tension that paralleled it all. Clara effortlessly steered the conversation toward her projects and the children's activities. Watching her take charge, I fought the instinct to sink into the shadows, the familiar pang of humiliation tightening my chest. Burning in my lungs was the urgency to assert my presence, but Clara's confidence often pushed me to the edges, making me question whether I belonged. I clutched my fork, finding tiny comfort among the clinking dishes, as her familiarity with the children sparked an unbidden pang of jealousy. Each anecdote she spun about them felt like her way of marking territory. Her meticulous care constructed walls that held me at bay. "Mom," Clara chirped, her tone bright yet sharp. "We're so lucky to have someone with such traditional values to help ground the kids." The remark was laced with condescension, drawing light laughter from the table, while I felt a prick at the back of my neck, my fingers tightening instinctively around my silverware. Something stirred within me, and I refused to shy away any longer. "Actually, Clara," I interjected, sensing my truth brewing beneath the surface, "those traditions are invaluable. They've shaped the family you enjoy today, and I won't let anyone diminish their significance." Surprise flickered across the faces at the table. Clara's bright demeanor faltered. David's eyes widened, an unspoken understanding passing between us. This confrontation held weight. Clara retorted, her expression wavering between irritation and disbelief. "Tradition needs modernizing," she declared, fortifying her position, "or it'll become obsolete." "True," I responded, a cool conviction layering my voice, "but modernization should embrace collaboration, not control. I want to be part of this family and to be involved on equal ground where my voice has value." As the words settled in the air, the following silence bore witness to the unfolding tension. Shocked expressions flickered around, my children's eyes alight with curiosity and caution. I noticed Clara's composure fraying, each moment intensifying the weightiness of the conversation. David, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, leaned forward with warmth and conviction. "Mom deserves respect, Clara. We all do. It's time we appreciate how our dynamics affect each other." In the thick silence that ensued, I could feel Clara's facade unravel. Her mouth opened and closed, words retreating in uncertainty as vulnerability flitted across her face. "I didn't mean to diminish your role. I've just tried to do what's best for the kids." A thread of empathy emerged, drawing her back toward the essence of our humanity. Yet it wouldn't absolve the years of belittling remarks, nor the subtle erasure that had become our norm. "Yes, Clara," I replied gently, my heartbeat steadying, "but it's about finding balance. I want to share in their joys and challenges, but only if we can open up to each other and respect our differences." I could sense the air shifting, potential weaving through the fragile silence as hope tentatively dared to emerge. Clara's shoulders relaxed as she considered my words. "Maybe we both have lessons to learn," she conceded, her voice quieter yet infused with sincerity. "I'm willing to work on that if you are." Fresh warmth unfurled within me, bringing with it new possibilities for connection. There it was, a flicker of openness to the chaos that had once alienated us. As the atmosphere shifted, conversation stretched into the territory of understanding rather than conflict. It felt like pulling a thread to unravel an age-old tapestry, revealing both beauty and flaw. The lunch transitioned from a battle of wills to a celebration of every voice present. Clara, now more receptive, earned a modicum of respect by pushing aside her pride, and I sensed my children drawing nearer, not just physically to the table, but in emotional engagement, a chance to witness growth. We began discussing shared activities, engaging in narratives of what we valued as a family. The atmosphere lightened, filled with laughter and artful storytelling woven by generations. I felt propelled forward, a force ignited not only within myself, but in the entire family, urging everyone toward a shared understanding. By the end of the meal, the table transformed from a battleground into a unified space, suggestions and ideas exchanged freely. As Clara leaned closer, genuine curiosity painted her features, allowing me to share stories of significance, her children engaging enthusiastically in the conversation. The tension around the table waned into a camaraderie that I felt flooded by warmth. I had walked into that house bound by anxiety, yet emerged empowered, my dignity reclaimed. It was a testament to the necessity of dialogue and the fluidity where respect thrived. A light shining brighter than I believed possible. As we cleared the table together, I braced myself to whisper my mantra once more, this time rooted in conviction and newfound strength. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. With each plate washed and put away, I felt the distance between us shrink, weaving tighter the fabric of our familial bond. This wasn't just about reclaiming my voice, it was about galvanizing our family ties, inviting connection, and building a legacy together, brick by careful brick. In the days that followed the transformative lunch, a warmth settled within me, yet I felt a new weight emerging from the shadows, a lingering uncertainty about Clara. Our dialogue had taken a step towards harmony, but beneath the surface, remnants of old patterns lingered, threatening the progress we had made. I was acutely aware that it would take more than one conversation to solidify change. Every Sunday, we convened for family dinner. It had been an unyielding tradition, and now felt like a ripe opportunity to put my newfound resolve into practice. I wanted to invite open communication, foster a conscious sharing of our voices, and ensure that Clara's grip over our family dynamics didn't silently reassert itself. In the depths of my heart, I recognized this wasn't just a challenge for Clara, it was a challenge for myself too, to stand firm in my worth and invite balance into our relationships. As I prepared for the next gathering, my kitchen was a symphony of smells and sounds, the sizzling of vegetables, the bubbling of pasta, the laughter of my grandchildren as they flitted through the living room. I methodically set the table, ensuring everything was in place, each fork, knife, and plate timely arranged. Yet my mind raced with how to approach the evening without igniting old tensions. The air filled with the fragrance of basil and tomato as Clara arrived with David and the children. I could see her effort spilling into the gathering. She carried a beautifully crafted salad, a reflection of her meticulous nature. It was a generous gesture, one that showcased her desire to contribute. But as I greeted her warmly, I felt a spark of uncertainty dance in the air. "Thank you for bringing that," I said, gesturing towards the vibrant dish. She smiled, but her eyes revealed their own set of calculations. I feared she might perceive my attempts at mutual growth as an encroachment upon her territory. As we gathered around the table, I employed every ounce of fortitude from that resonant Sunday of change. I felt the energy shift as we began to share stories over the meal, a directive I hoped would cultivate openness among us. David initiated a sharing of memories, each child chiming in with laughter and anecdotes. Yet I noticed Clara mainly facilitated, without contributing emotionally. It was a performance brimming with expectation rather than encapsulating connection. Her laughter rang hollow sometimes, and her eyes darted away from lingering gazes. There it was, the ghost of her prior authority in our dynamics, refusing to dissolve entirely. Seizing the moment, I leaned in, addressing Clara directly. "What were your favorite moments from our family gatherings when you were younger?" I asked, hoping to rekindle her warmth, to find the common ground beneath our differing approaches. Her eyes flickered, hesitation etched across her features, and she hesitated for a moment longer than necessary before responding. "I loved when Grandma would tell stories about her childhood," she replied, a wistful smile dancing on her lips. "It felt like magic. Maybe we can create some of that magic together," I suggested, sensing a window open, sharing stories, blending our styles, so the kids will have memories crafted from the best parts of both worlds. My heart raced, but I forced myself to maintain a steady gaze, reminding myself of the beauty in this opportunity, of intertwining our stories rather than letting them collide. Clara's expression softened almost imperceptibly, and I saw the glimmer of acknowledgement bloom within her. "That sounds nice," she replied, the calmness of her tone igniting flames of hope that flickered around our dinner table. As conversations deepened, I continued to nudge gently at the boundaries of our familial construct, eager to ensure that each voice, each story, found equal footing. I could feel Clara edging closer to revelation, recognizing that I was asserting my rightful place, not as a rival, but as an ally. "What do you think about involving the kids in planning our next get-together?" I suggested, gauging Clara's reaction. "We can gather ideas from everyone, creating opportunities for each of us to share something unique." Clara murmured her agreement, a deliberate nod of her head betraying a cautious willingness to engage collaboratively. I could sense her internal deliberation. It was as if she was pondering the risk of relinquishing control, the risks glimmering behind her sharp intellect. "You're onto something there," David chimed in, his voice warm and reassuring. "The kids would love it. It would bring new life into our traditions." The warmth around the table grew, my grandchildren wide-eyed with wonder at the prospect of being involved, while Clara nodded thoughtfully, internalizing the idea. I saw the cracks in her armor deepen, perhaps recognizing that family was an evolving concept meant to be shared, not hoarded. After the dinner, as everyone helped clean up, I leaned into Clara lightly. "I appreciate you being here tonight and being open to trying something new." Clara paused for a brief moment, having been lost in her own thoughts, before responding. "It's not easy for me to share space," she finally admitted, vulnerability dancing in her eyes. "I've always felt like I had to hold it all together." "I understand," I said softly, that intimate connection coiling tighter. "Perhaps together we can redefine what it means to support one another instead of overshadowing." We shared a look that felt weighty with acknowledgement. It was a conversation marked by the potential for change. As the evening pressed on, I felt elated, knowing that the foundations of our family dynamics were beginning to reshape. No longer bound by silent conflict, we were loosening the knots that had held us prisoner for too long. By the time everyone left, laughter still echoed through the hallways. I stood alone in the kitchen, a flood of warmth gathering around my heart. That night had opened new avenues, showcasing that collaboration didn't mean sacrificing one's presence. It meant honoring everyone involved. I reflected on the rituals and practices we would build moving forward. Not just the dinners, but shared moments of vulnerability, joy, and kindness. As I washed the last plate, I could feel the echoes of hope pulsating through me, through us. My mantra, once uttered in whispered resolve, now rang true. "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart." With his conviction, I stepped into the future of our family, ready to embrace every twist of our shared journey. Weeks passed since our transformative family dinner, and a cautious warmth enveloped our interactions. Clara and I found ourselves navigating a new rhythm, tinged with both lightness and the weight of unresolved tension. As we prepared for the next family gathering, I sensed Clara struggling with her dual role of being both mother and daughter-in-law, and fear of losing control seeped into the air. The day of the gathering arrived, and my kitchen was alive with the aroma of my signature dish. I meticulously adorned the dining table with a vibrant centerpiece, hoping to showcase how collaboration could bear fruit. Laughter floated through our home, but Clara still seemed distant, a ghost hovering on the edge of our festive moments. As the kids shared their ideas for the theme, the great outdoors, I noticed Clara becoming increasingly withdrawn, her silence an ominous undercurrent. Despite our recent strides toward openness, I could feel her retreating, her fingers curling tightly around the wine glass as if it were her lifeline. My youngest grandchild piped up with excitement, urging everyone to share their own outdoor memories. The room grew tense as Clara's discomfort radiated outward. I swallowed hard, trying to summon the courage that had grown in me recently. "Clara," I gently said, "what's your favorite memory from being outdoors?" Her hesitation filled the air, a wary glance darting my way before she stammered, "I don't know. I always worry I won't live up to expectations." My heart sank, sensing the familiar barriers rising once more. Yet I inhaled deeply, drawing strength from the bond we had started to weave. "Let's redefine perfection together," I offered, my voice steady. "We can embrace the messiness that comes with sharing experiences, cherishing our imperfections." A tension-fueled silence enveloped us, but David, sensing the weight, reached for Clara's hand, urging her to be vulnerable. "Mom, it's okay to lean on us," he said quietly, his eyes expressive with understanding. With a look of hesitant acknowledgement exchanged between Clara and me, she finally opened up. "I feel this pressure to keep it all together," she admitted, the flood of emotions shimmering in her gaze. I didn't realize I could share that burden. I felt the air shift palpably. Walls that had held us captive began to crumble. "We're here to support each other, Clara," I insisted, inching closer, creating space for trust. "Let's create our roles together, allowing each of us to share the load." As she shared a cherished memory of camping under the stars, her voice grew steadier. It was magical. The room blossomed with warmth as her story resonated, laughter spilling forth, a release of energies long held captive. In that right moment, as Clara's laughter mingled with that of our grandchildren, I recognized the profound shift occurring within us, not just as a family, but as individuals reclaiming our space together. Each shared story was a thread woven into the fabric of our connection, binding us in our humanity. The gathering morphed into a tapestry of laughter and love, illuminating the resonance of vulnerability and acceptance. I knew then that our journey toward understanding had only just begun. Barriers were lifted to reveal new possibilities, the family's true heart beating anew. As we circled around the table, I felt that familiar pulse of my mantra resound within me. "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart." The words rang true as I stepped into a future where our stories intertwined, embracing the twists and turns of our shared journey together.